Let's talk topwater fishing during the summer. So, topwater can be one of the best ways to catch really, really big bass, and it can also be one of the best ways to catch really finicky bass. I've always found that the hardest thing to do is to catch really big bass during the summer, and a lot of that is due to the fact that those bass are not really interested in feeding that often. And so, in order to get something that is not really interested in feeding to actually feed, you got to present something that it can't refuse. And one of those things that the bass just cannot refuse is something that looks like an injured adult Atlantic menhaden. And one of my favorite topwater lures during the summer is a big spook. I like to wake up right early at sunrise and fish them early in the morning, right before the sun gets up. Basically, as soon as it starts to get bright out, that's when the bass are going to be maybe the most active on the surface. And if you throw something like a big 9-inch spook, I'm a big fan of the Magnum Walkers, the Pumbaa Plugs Magnum Walkers, a 9-inch wooden spook that you can cast very well. And it's one of my favorite big spooks. You can also throw things like the big docks. Those are classic. And so anyway, the spooks are one of my go-tos because they can just attract fish even if they're very deep. What you also want to try to look for is clean, clear, deep water. And when you can find water that's clean, and what I mean by clean is visually the water is clear, and there can be eelgrass and stuff in the water, but if the water is pretty clear, that's going to make it so those bass are going to want to be in there because the water might be cooler. That might be a spot where they will hang out to digest, and you can present a really big lure to them and they will be more likely to come up and eat it. I also like places that are pretty currenty, and what I mean by that is I like fishing points of coves and stuff where on outgoing tides there's going to be a good amount of current going by the point, and if you have any sort of structure like boulder fields or maybe a big boulder, something that will kind of attract those fish off of that point, that's always a great place to look, because what will happen is those bass will hang out right behind those boulders, digest, look for easy meals, and just hang out. And so what I'll do is I'll throw these spooks and I'll work them really nice and slow right across the surface of the water. But if you're getting a lot of big swirls, what you can do is speed up the retrieve. And this is spook specific. With a big spook, if you skip it across the surface of the water really fast, reeling it straight, big fish will come up and crush it because they think that's a bunker jumping away from it. And so they'll really chase that stuff down. And I've had success where you'll be working the spook and then the bass will swirl on it, nothing's really happening, and you speed it up and reel it really fast and stop it, and then the bass just absolutely destroy it. Or as soon as you speed it up, you can't reel it fast enough and those big bass will come up and eat it. And I've had bass up to 50 inches chase down a spook and crush it, me reeling it as fast as possible. So they'll do that. Like, that's something that I've done and been wildly successful doing. And I think it's a little tactic that not a lot of people know with spooks that will really get those bass fired up to feed, because you always think super slow with big fish, but there are scenarios where if you speed that retrieval up, you will get a big hit. Now, on the flip side of that, another lure that I really like to throw is the pencil popper, and pencil poppers are so deadly because you can cast extremely far. To me, the same rules apply. I fish them a lot in deep, clean, clear water, but you can also reach very far out. If there's bait around, it's very useful because it throws a lot of water. It looks like a distressed bait fish, and a lot of the time that will be enough to get those fish to eat. But say there's no real action going on the surface. There's no bunker schools or mackerel getting harassed by fish. It's a calm, clear morning. Being able to slowly work a spook across the surface, you can work it almost like you're working a spook, but it's actually a pencil popper. And what I mean by that is, if you twitch it, so where the pencil popper is walking back and forth like this, or maybe slapping on the surface and then slapping on the surface, diving under, maybe slapping and then diving a little bit, that slower action is going to be more apt for those bigger fish than it is going to be for a little fish. And I've had a lot of times where working a pencil really quickly and having it thrash back and forth on the surface have yielded more small, schooly sized fish, where if you're slowing that retrieve down and walking the spook back and forth and back, or the spook, I keep saying spook, but I mean walking the pencil like a spook back and forth across the surface of the water, that will get that bass fired up to hit it. And big fish will look at something that's thrashing around, they'll be like, it's not worth my time. But if you're walking it nice and slow across the surface, they'll see that and be like, that's an easy meal, I'm gonna go hit that. And that is one of the best ways to catch really big bass early in the morning. Working the pencil really slowly like that is a killer way of catching really big fish. And then as far as fishing at actively feeding fish, the same rules apply, but you can be a little bit more aggressive with your action you're giving to the plugs. Again, my two top favorite lures that I just talked about being big spooks and actually small 6 to 7 inch pencil poppers. Those are my two go-tos no matter what I'm doing. I fish poppers a little bit. They are very successful, but I prefer, and I've had a lot more success on fishing larger spooks and small pencils. And I think that the two of those I can basically cover all my bases with. And when the bass are feeding on something like adult bunker school, you're going to be able to slow a spook down enough, and it looks so realistic to an injured bunker that that bass will come off of a bunch of bait fish to go chase down your lure and eat it. That's how productive big spooks are. And the same thing applies to a small pencil. They'll see that small pencil and they'll be in the middle of a bunker school. And I've had this happen where there'll be a bass in the middle of a bunker school, they'll see your pencil over to the side of the bunker school, and they'll swim across the bunker school. The bunker will split and the bass will come right in between it and crush your pencil because they can sense that there's something injured over there and they know that's an easy meal. And that's why topwater, specifically in the summer, can be one of the most deadly ways to catch really big fish. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.